I could have just let myself stay in bed and then get put out on the streets and not do anything and just let everything fall apart and die. But I knew something cool would happen if I just waited, and something did.
Hey there, my name is Sean, and this is Suicide Noted. On this podcast, I talk with suicide attempt survivors so that we can hear their stories. Every year around the world, millions of people try to take their own lives, and we almost never talk about it. And when we do talk about it, many of us, including me, well, we're not very good at it. So one of my goals with this podcast is to have more conversations, and hopefully better conversations with attempt survivors. Now, we're talking about suicide, so this may not be a good fit for everybody. Please take that into account before you listen. But I do hope you listen because there is so much to learn. If you are a suicide attempt survivor and you'd like to share your story, I would love to talk. Please reach out. hello@suicidenoted.com or on Facebook or Twitter @suicidenoted. And you'll hear me ask this a lot of you, our supporters. Please, if you listen on Apple, rate and review this podcast. It really helps people find the podcast, and I believe there are a lot of people that would benefit from hearing these stories. So thank you for that. Today, I am talking with Tianna. Tianna lives in Alberta, Canada, and she is a suicide attempt survivor. Hi, Tianna. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. You're good, man. I so appreciate you connecting with me. Thank you. Do you remember how you found this podcast? Because I think you reached out to me, and I'm always so curious.
I was looking for thoughts by Ludacris because I was watching Ellen DeGeneres. I know, it's really random. But anyways, I ended up coming across a podcast. I think it was called Thoughts of Suiciders. It wasn't your podcast, but it was somebody else's. And I remember you were a guest on it. And I thought that the person who was doing the podcast, he was kind of questionable for me because I didn't really like how he was like so unnerved by the whole topic itself. And like that creates a big stigma in everybody not feeling comfortable talking about it, but everybody's been stressed and everybody's been down, and some people more than others. But like, as far as it goes, he just seemed uncomfortable with the questions that he was even asking you, but you were really like on point with your responses. How I was thinking, I remember there was one thing that just like resonated because I always try to explain to people not to ask me a question if they're waiting to respond, but only ask me the question if they want to listen. Don't like be ready for like giving me advice or like telling me what I should do or how I should feel. And I always get bothered by that. And then you said that too, like on your own, you're just like, sometimes it's okay just to say nothing and tell somebody that you don't know what to say. Cause like, that's better 100%. Than just spewing out some random shit that makes no sense. Yeah.
It is so fascinating to me how we learn to communicate, or I don't even think we really learn anything. We just kind of figure it out. Yeah, it astounds me. So I'm glad we were able to connect, and you're comfortable enough to join me here. So thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah. I mean, like if I'm telling you thank you for having the podcast that you do, I feel like if I have a story to tell that might help, I should probably not be hypocritical a little.
Sure. I get that. Yep. No, but either way, I appreciate it. So obviously this is about suicide. And if you're here, you have attempted suicide, presumably, however you define it, at least once. Is that right?
Yeah. In a matter of speaking, I wasn't trying to save myself, but I also wasn't like I was dying, but I didn't call an ambulance kind of thing. Right. So I wasn't ready to try and save myself, but I also wasn't actively trying to be going down that route at the same time either. Right. But in a matter of speaking, it's the same thing. I wasn't trying to stop it either. I was bleeding out and I was like, okay with it. I just texted a friend and told them to come pick me up. And whenever she got there, right?
Yeah.
I know it sounds weird. Yeah.
No. I don't think it's weird at all. Everyone's got their own stuff they've gone through. When was that? If we can talk about it a little bit, how long ago?
Almost a year ago now. Almost a year.
Okay.
It was just last summer, actually, in August.
I'm going to ask you a question that Apparently, I'm not supposed to ask, but I do break some rules here on my podcast. I try to do it respectfully. What was
Mhm.
going on? We sort of tend to break down or sort of dive in, like what was happening in
Well,
your life that you ended up, going in that direction.
well, in the moment, I was actually pregnant, and I had found out later on, but I didn't know how far along I was. I don't know how the medical system works in the States, but in Canada, it's a little bit different. So, like, I went into the ER because I was concerned about the way I was feeling because I didn't know I was pregnant. I was still getting like kind of periods. I thought they were, but I also wasn't really taking care of myself around that time. So they weren't like I wasn't regular, but I wasn't concerned about it because I was just assuming that was my health or my diet or whatever. Right. So then I
Mm.
ended up going into the hospital and yeah, the ER because I was feeling really sick and like whatever. Found out that I was pregnant and that I might have a blood clot. But then I ended up getting through that whole process and I went home and I was very excited about being pregnant. I went home with my boyfriend and we were planning whatever we were going to do with this kid, right? I found out in July and then I ended up losing my baby in August, but I didn't think that I was very far along. Like I didn't think I was in my second trimester. So I ended up after the ER, you get sent to go and do an ultrasound. And then the ultrasound tech doesn't tell you what's going on because they can't. So they send you to your doctor, and then your doctor tells you, and like it's this whole roundabout way of doing things. But when I went in for my ultrasound, because I thought that I was really early, seeing as how I didn't know that I was pregnant, I assumed maybe they just didn't see the heartbeat or anything like that yet because I was 6 weeks to 8 weeks roughly. I didn't think that I was, you know, in past 3 months. So I ended up going and not thinking too much of the fact that my like I didn't get to hear the heartbeat in that appointment. My doctor's office phoned me after that, and they would have seen at this point that my baby wasn't alive. They would have seen that I was carrying it and it was actually not alive anymore. And so they called me to go in to talk about my results, but in the message that they left, they had specifically said no rush. So again, I assumed it was too early to go and see anything. So the doctor's office was probably going to send me again in a couple of weeks to go and hear the heartbeat and check on the baby when I was far enough along. But that wasn't the case. I was actually just carrying a dead baby inside of me for two weeks. And then
Mm.
I ended up going into labor one day because I was past the miscarriage point in my pregnancy. So I was having contractions during the day, but I'm notorious for holding in a lot of pain when it happens. I grew up in a very small, rough town that's just like if you're in pain, you just kind of suck it in, hold it down, and then walk it off. So I assumed I was having cramps from the miscarriage that I thought I was having. I thought I was having a miscarriage, of course, because there was bleeding, but it wasn't anything crazy yet. And so I was at home and I was waiting for the miscarriage, like the bleeding and my sadness. So I was going to take maybe like a week off of work. And then I actually was in my garage working on a couple of my projects because I'm an artist too and I do metal refurb. So I was refurbing a table and I was in my garage and all of a sudden something was weird and my contractions were closer together. And then all of a sudden, like I could feel that I was dropping something down there. Like I didn't know what was happening. And I ran to my apartment back inside and on my toilet, I gave birth to my baby alone.
Mm.
So that's where the bleeding out and having to text instead of calling an ambulance came into place because I really didn't care if I was alive.
And that was last summer. Do you,
Yeah, I
do
went to
you,
fish my kid out
yeah.
of the toilet.
Hmm. So what happens after that?
Well, I got my kid out of the toilet and I put him in a bowl and I just cried,
Hmm.
held him, and waited, I guess. I texted my friend and said to come and get me because I need to go to the hospital. But I didn't indicate really why or anything. And she came in. When she came in, there was blood everywhere. And just me and my kid.
Hmm. You didn't care at that
No,
point if you were
I
gone.
didn't
Do you
care for
now?
about a month after.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah, I
Did
was
you? What
supposed to
kind of
go
help?
back to get checked for and stuff, but I just stayed in bed.
Yeah. What kind of support did you have, if any?
I didn't have any. I didn't have anybody.
No.
My boyfriend thought that I gave myself a coat hanger abortion. His sister's the one that picked me up, so she just basically said it was too gruesome to have been natural. And then I got left alone by them, and I'm not talking to any of my family. I don't really have any friends, so it was just me.
Is that then, or does that also apply now? friends, family?
It's sort of kind of consistent. I don't know. I'm talking to my sister and my brother again, but my sister actually just had a kid around the
Mm.
same time I was supposed to. I was really scared to go and meet her kid because I didn't want to create any resentment or anything like that. But I have never been so happy as I was to meet that little guy. He's so cute.
Mm. This is about a year now, more or less, almost a year.
Yeah,
Um,
almost a year.
do you, we're like in the past year, these things are almost impossible to sort of like summarize and find words to describe everything, obviously, with the understanding that I don't have the correct words here, right? Are you
That's okay. Yeah.
glad? Yeah. Are you glad? That's not the best word. So all I can think of right now. Are you okay with the fact that you didn't die? That's about the best I can come up with.
I am.
Yeah.
I am now because every time I get to a really new low, and this is probably the hardest that I've ever like I've been through a lot of stuff and there's been a lot of times where I felt like really helpless and hopeless, but I always know that something cool always ends up happening that allows you to keep pushing forward. And so although that was fucking something else, I one no nothing's ever going to get that bad again because that was just completely debilitating, but also
Mhm.
I knew that something cool would happen eventually if I kept waiting. I could have just let myself fucking fall on, stay in bed and then get put out on the streets and not do anything and just let everything fall apart and die, but I knew something cool would happen if I just waited. And something did. My sister and I started talking again and I got to hold her kid.
Mm.
And now I'm just so attached to that little guy because he's so cute and he's sweet and he looks like me.
So what is he? Well, I guess he doesn't talk yet, but he will be called Aunt T or Aunt Tianna or something like that.
Probably Auntie TT.
Auntie T. Okay, that's adorable.
Yeah, my nickname was
Um,
TT when I was a kid.
yeah, and again, I don't want to dwell on stuff that's especially difficult, but given the nature of sort of the things that people like you had said, the podcast that you heard, in which I was a guest, and how people talk about some stuff, sometimes talk too
Mhm.
much. Let me know if you don't want to keep going there. I'm fine. But I wonder when you go through this experience and there's not a lot of people around, did anybody in your life, whether that's a friend or a family or your boyfriend at the time or someone in the medical community, did anybody talk to you in a way where it was like you felt okay? You felt like you were, what I mean? Like, because most people suck at it,
Yeah,
even if they mean well. Like, was there
most
anyone
people
around and
do.
you're like, oh, yeah, they suck? Was anyone around who was like, you were like, yeah, no, thank you for just that?
It was kind of weird because there was one person that ended up, it was an email and I never even met the woman in person because most things I was getting were people just pushing away from me because I was sad and it's a horrific thing to hear and it's hard to relate to, but also most women trying to say, oh well, it's kind of like when I had this abortion this one time, or like, or it's kind of like my miscarriage, or like, you guys, you don't have to say anything about it, it's okay, like if you don't feel comfortable hearing it, I won't tell you. It's really that simple. I am okay with people not feeling comfortable because that's a really fucked up, weird, gruesome thing that happened. Like I wouldn't want to hear it if it wasn't if it didn't happen to me. I wouldn't want to hear about it if I'm being completely honest. But
Mm,
when it comes down to it, there's this one little nagging thing that comes to me every single time I think about Mother's Day was especially tough for this because there was this one lady, the first person, and I didn't know I was kind of missing this acknowledgement almost, that sent me a link to grieving parents. And it was the first time I got called a parent
mm,
because I gave birth and I held my kid.
yeah,
He just wasn't alive. So I don't get the acknowledgement of being a mom.
that is not fair. Mm,
Yeah, Mother's Day hit me really hard. Kept having a lot of flashbacks, and right now I'm not driving because I got sold a stolen car. So I'm in an Uber or something, freaking just breaking down.
mm.
This cab driver's wondering why, and it's literally for no reason. We're just going past a string of houses, and I start crying.
I don't know how different Canada is from the US, and I don't know if it's something that you've ever thought about. I'm just wondering. I do a lot of wondering if you haven't figured that out. I wonder about a lot of things.
That's probably why
Are
you have
there
a podcast, probably.
probably right? You're exactly right. Do you know if Edmonton or your area of Edmonton, are there like what kind of support groups would there be Not to suggest
I
that
was
you
trying to
you want that, but like, yeah, what would be the right support group for someone that went through what you went through?
all of the support groups right now, like I've been waiting for this one to open back up because it's a grieving parents one and because COVID literally shut them all down. So I've been just like waiting for this one support group to open, but that's the only one I found either. There's no real support for this kind of thing. And you probably don't know about this, but during COVID, Alberta decided that they wanted to put millions of dollars into mental health to help people, right? Through the pandemic. And I mean, like, this isn't pandemic related, but I sure as shit thought I'd be seeing some sort of help, like more accessible help out there, but there wasn't. And I haven't found any that's
Mhm.
free, first off, because obviously I'm struggling. I couldn't work for like a couple of months with it, like steadily. And then I was so completely rattled every fucking time I turned around that I was just like basically part time at my job because I couldn't go in all the time. And now I can't drive because I have no freaking car. It's just so
Yeah, it
it's
all
hard to
adds
be
up,
able
and
to stay. Yeah.
it becomes
And I've been
almost
living alone since I was
impossible.
16 years old. Like, this is the first time I've ever had any like financial struggle since I was 16. I lived alone then, and this is the hardest I've ever been hit with this. It's crazy. And I don't get any support or help from friends or family because you have to have those to get that, right? So my sister has a
Mhm.
kid and she can't really do much for me. And I don't have any family otherwise this that would think about helping me. I have a mom and a brother. My dad passed away.
How many people in the world know about what happened? Any part of it, and that includes the obvious sort of the loss, in addition to sort of those moments in which you were kind of it sounds like you were kind of okay if whether you stayed or didn't, and you wouldn't have been here. Who knows?
That aspect of it or the entirety of the story? Because like that
Yeah,
aspect of it's
maybe
more or
maybe
less
either. Maybe either. I'm just curious. Who knows about these difficult things that we all go through? In your case, obviously, yeah. Either one.
Mine's pretty low on the radar as far as it goes. I don't really like share publicly. Like there wouldn't be a post on Facebook, for example, of me like spilling or whatever. Like people who know were in direct contact. So at the hospital, the people that were there knew. My ex knew obviously, and well, he thought he knew something else because he said the most terrible thing he thought I did, but he knew what happened and made a story about it. But anyways, him and his sister, my sister and brother and mom, maybe like two people at work that were necessary to know. It's just people don't
Hmm.
really ask, right? So I don't tell unless somebody
No,
asks. It's not really something that I'm going to go out and spread the word because I don't like bringing people down and I don't like that this story is so impactful in a negative way. I understand that it's something that's important to know that people go through, but I like to try and make people happy rather than the alternative. So even if I'm struggling, if I can make other people smile, it helps me a little, still helps me a little,
mm,
right? That's a little selfish because
yeah,
that's how I think, but if I can help other
sure,
people, then I start to feel better too. So I'm not going to try and bring people down with my crazy story of this horrific event that happened to me unless somebody actually asked me what happened last summer. So
yeah,
that's kind of past
yeah,
now because I haven't been missing any work or anything, new chapter, new this, new that, right? So people aren't going to be asking me anymore. It's not, well, except for you, of course, but you know.
yeah. Well, yeah, there's probably other people that do
Mhm.
not necessarily this, but they have that kind of curiosity. Because I might be really in the great minority. Of course, these kinds of things most people don't want to hear, and it's probably not going to put them in a good mood. But I also think, and it might be, and I'm sort of probably thinking about who I imagine listens to this podcast. They do, I don't know if the words want to hear it or need to hear it, but knowing that other people are going through difficult things in a way I don't think makes them happy, but makes them feel less alone.
Comforted.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
might be the best word. Yeah, or less shitty is my very direct way of saying it.
Mhm.
So, and I guess that's one of the reasons why I do this is, yeah, no, I mean, yeah, do we want to talk about it? Probably not, but this is a very self-selected audience, right?
Well,
Like it's a
yeah.
very
Well,
specific person.
yeah, it's people who need to. It also has a small sector, probably of morbid curiosity people, but
Sure.
also like a lot of people who just really need to hear that they're not struggling all by themselves. Like there's so much connection nowadays, but have you ever noticed that everybody is like really quick to bash people who feel really down and feel like they want to off themselves? Oh, that's selfish, or that's a coward's way out. Those are like
Yeah, yeah,
notorious
yeah.
things that I used to hear growing up all the time because I'm from a small town that's like really they don't accept that kind of they'll call weakness. I don't think it's weakness at all. I think that that's just a solid sometimes people are hurting and
Oh, yeah, I totally agree. It's not weak at all. Yeah, I agree with you. People are very quick, depending on the circle or the space. Yeah, they're quick to do any number of things, and those things rarely include just shutting up and listening. Even on
Yeah,
podcasts that are well known, and I'm not comparing because there's some fantastic podcasts that are sort of broadly under the mental health umbrella. You know,
yeah,
they're diagnosing or they're here's how to feel better, and those are all potentially really valuable. But I don't find a lot where you're like, can you just shut up
yeah.
and let somebody share what they're going through? And it might take a little while, deal with it, but
There's a huge power in just being able to blurt it out. Like you can ask for certain helpful tips and understanding and like look for further help in that sense, but 90% of the time, a lot of the time when somebody's this like at this point where they're feeling so low and they're bleeding out, not wanting any help, like the last thing they want to hear is for example, my my mother and I are estranged. Like she's not very good at talking to me, and this is one of those times where she wasn't very good at talking to me. She said, "Why didn't you call me?" I said, "When? While I was giving birth, or while I was crying and trying to, keep all my insides inside of me? Like, when did you want me to call you in that moment?" That's your big advice right now, is to call me next time,
like
okay? Like,
yeah, not to take anything away from your mom. I'm sure she's cool, but people tend to kind of quickly, often they kind of make it a little bit about themselves, right? Like, why
yeah,
why didn't you
yeah.
call me? It's like, hang on. Yeah,
Why would I have called you is the question there in that moment. I
right.
didn't even
And that's
call
a
the ambulance. I texted a friend. Like, wow,
yeah.
that's something.
Wait, so had you in your life before or after ever had any sort of suicidal ideation where you thought about that?
Yeah, no, I there was a time where I ended up I'm trying to think. There was one specific time and I can't remember exactly what led me there or why I was in that moment. And I like, yeah, I was really ready to do it. And I can't specifically pinpoint exactly what was going on in my life that created my just kind of spiral downwards. And maybe that's my brain protecting me from that moment. But at the end of the day, I do remember I had a knife to my wrist and I was going to do it. And my little cat, he put his paw on me and just like looked at me and meowed. And then I didn't, and that was the only thing I can really say about that moment. It was like I was ready. Then I seen this little guy who loves me and wanted me to stop because he could feel my pain. And then yeah, I don't know. I
Mm.
just laid with him the rest of the night.
Same cat?
Yeah, same cat. I've had this little guy for 6 years. Yeah.
Wow. So
Yeah.
he's been with you throughout all of this.
Oh yeah, yeah. He's my rock. So yeah, actually, I did have somebody around me. I did. I was my cat.
Yeah. So when you grew up, it sounded like you'd said something that really resonated about how people don't I don't know the exact words because you were talking about physical pain. People don't show physical pain. There's something noble almost in not letting people know you're in pain. But I wonder, and I might be getting off on a corny tangent here, but does the same go for other kinds of pain? Like if you're depressed or if you're whatever it is in what is it, Edmonton? I don't know how old you are,
No.
whenever you're growing up. Yeah.
Yeah, I grew up in Prince George, BC. This
Okay.
is a small town that was it just wasn't really progressive, I guess. When I moved to Edmonton is when I started realizing that mental health was real. Like I didn't think that it even existed. Back in Prince George, it's that is the place where any difference makes you weak. So either you're tough and you aren't hurting, or you're keeping it to yourself, or you're holding it in. You walk it off, mental or physical health, and that's that. And you're not a tough person or worth much if you're going to let other people see you cry. You're not going to fit in very well, is really how it was. And I don't know if it's still like that now because I moved to Edmonton when I was 13 years old. But growing up from age 5 to 13 is I grew up around a lot of people who really didn't show any physical or mental pain. And honestly, I really didn't believe that mental illness existed. I thought that it was people making excuses because that's how I grew up. I think honestly, like I wasn't until I was 18 to 20ish that I actually started thinking, hey, there might be something to this. I'm 26 now. So it wasn't very long ago that I actually just started opening up my mind to that and believing it. Like
Mhm.
I just kind of held everything in the same way that I grew up. I mean, I never judged anybody for it, but I didn't necessarily buy the entirety of what people were saying. And I know that it's not right, but that's how I was. And I know that there's a
Yeah.
lot of other people out there like that too. So it's kind of hard. And that's why I really admire the podcasts that are out there now, is because there's a lot of towns like that. There's a lot of towns where people are feeling really secluded and alone and don't know why they feel that way, because they're actually growing up the same way too. I'm in
Right.
pain at home and I don't think that I'm allowed to have mental illness. So I never take it as an option or a thought pattern where I could just talk to somebody and maybe feel better. Instead, I'm suffering, but I don't know why I'm suffering. Right.
I love the fact that you are being honest about you not being particularly sensitive, mainly because you weren't aware about that
Mm.
stuff, because that is so true for so many people. It's so easy to say, well, I knew, but no, you didn't. You didn't have that understanding. You're changing, it sounds like, or you're sort of learning things. But I
Yeah.
appreciate that so much, because we all have a lot to learn, and there's all shit we don't know, even though we think we do. And you are so right. There are so many people. Is that a rugged sort of area, like an outdoorsy area?
Yeah, it's filled with bikers and hillbillies. So,
Because there's a huge part of the states, and it's in all kinds of pockets, but especially out west, a lot of men, in their 40s, 50s, 60s, mostly white dudes. I don't think it matters. It just happened to be a lot of white men there, and they have access to
yeah.
guns, and there's no mental health. And I'm guessing Prince George probably fits that description somewhat. They are offing themselves in very high numbers. Part of it's
Yeah.
guns, part of it's lack of understanding of mental health, part of it's lack of it's any number of things, but the numbers are very, very high, like double. You're creating an environment where that's gonna happen.
I feel like people have it labeled certain ways in order for people to understand. When it comes to
Yeah.
suicide, for example, this is something that probably, in my opinion only, like maybe I'm wrong, but it wouldn't be as high, like a number wise, if people just let people feel like they wanted to kill themselves. Like, why can't you
That is
just let somebody
very
feel that way
interesting.
now? Like maybe they won't
I
do it if they know that
agree.
it's okay to feel that way. And I know that there was a lot of me that felt like, well, if I do it and I get to finally like go to sleep, like rest, I don't have to deal with anything anymore. And I don't think anybody else is going to care. And they're going to just call me a coward anyway. So they're just going to be like, whatever about it.
If you know that
Yeah.
people are gonna call you a coward or ignore you or judge you, you'd be an idiot to say something. That's a completely
Mhm.
logical response. I think you're 100% correct. And I don't always agree with what everybody says. If you let people feel the way they feel, and could you imagine whether it's, hey, I am seriously consider killing myself, or something just like I'm having a shitty day, or anything in
Yeah.
between? If everybody just responded with the following, instead of saying anything, this is my own little, they said nothing.
Yeah.
Literally said, hey, you know what? I'm going to stay right here, and I'm not going to say a fucking word for as long as you need me not to say anything. And I want to hear what you have to say. And then I'm just going to thank you for saying it. I
Mhm.
guarantee the suicide rate would go down a lot.
It's really an underappreciated way of dealing with situations. I know that people are always, or like pissing contests, for example, going through high school and I was living by myself. People didn't know that about me when I was living alone. I just let certain teachers would know, but like I didn't, again, I just like hold things inside if I know that it's going to hurt somebody else or make other people feel uncomfortable in a way. So I was going to school doing my thing, and I'm not going to say that it wasn't incredibly hard and everything like that. And did I want to scream at the top of my lungs at graduation that I was like, hey bitches, guess what, I fucking graduated and I've been living alone this whole time? But no, I didn't. I just like played it cool. I almost tripped and fell on the stage, but that's another story. I ended up being in class one day, and there's people who have, and it's almost like it's a grade level of problems that the society has like created certain bubbles for people where, so a kid gets his phone taken away from his parent because he was out past curfew, something like that. Anyways, I think it was something like that, and he's talking about this to his friends, and my math teacher's listening, and he knows that I live by myself and that I'm paying all my own bills. And he looks at me and is like, Tian, do you have anything to say about that? I say, no, that's unfortunate, I'm sorry that happened. I know that that's a real problem for that guy because that's his environment. My environment happened to be different. Doesn't mean that my problems mean any more or less than his. It means that mine just are my problems and his are his. So why does he get less credit for feeling upset than I would for feeling upset?
Hmm.
That's not
Fair.
fair. So because somebody has a good life, they have to be penalized for feeling certain ways. But I'm allowed
Right.
to feel angry, aggressive. I'm allowed to fall down and be a drug addict and do whatever I want. And I can't have a get out of jail free card because I had a hard life. But this guy, he has a good family, a good home, and he gets called an idiot when he says I'm sad because my phone got taken away. Like, why is he an idiot for that? I would be sad too if I grew up in that kind of household and I got my phone taken away.
Man, you're spitting wisdom here.
I feel like it's underappreciated. Everybody has their problems. Doesn't mean that mine are any worse than other people. There's people out there with worse things happening. And that's the most annoying thing is we're all going through problems. Well, yeah, I'm trying to talk about mine
Yeah.
right now.
True.
That was so can you just listen? Like we're all allowed
Yeah.
to go
How do
through
you
problems.
measure
Doesn't
that?
mean
How do
that
you
I'm
start? Yeah.
yeah.
You're comparing and measuring. It's like, nah, we're going through stuff. And I get it. Like if somebody's constantly, literally always upset or complaining, it gets difficult. You kind of want to say, look, just we're all struggling. Just get on with it. I get that. But have you
Yeah.
created any space for that person to talk or vent before you just immediately
That's
go to that bullshit?
there's a fine line. Everybody's like, where do you draw that line? Well,
Yeah,
you start listening. How you start it. That's how you start it. Like just listen to a person. If there's a pattern, call it out. If
sure,
somebody's just going to
sure.
keep on complaining, you can say, I feel like you're constantly complaining. Like you're allowed to say that to people. They don't have to take it the right or wrong way or like the better way. But if that's how you're feeling in the moment, you have somebody coming to you with the same problem over and over again, let them know that
Sure.
you're hearing it. It's continuous. If there's anything further that they want to know or hear, or like if they're going to keep on complaining about the same thing, eventually you kind of have to wait and say, I feel like this is still happening because they're a common denominator at this point. Like eventually,
Sure.
eventually you have to say that you need to get yourself out of your funk. If you're not gonna, get out of it, then there's got to be other ways. There's always other ways. Always waiting for something cool to happen.
Do you think that you'd have this understanding of communication if you hadn't gone? I know this is kind of impossible because you don't know what might have happened if your life went in a different direction. But do you think some of the stuff you've gone through has allowed you to be better at, it sounds like empathy, if nothing else?
I think I have a really high level of understanding for a lot of people's struggles and emotions, and I'm really easy to talk to in the sense where I don't actually judge a person on how they're reacting to certain things. I'm not sure if all of that comes from experience because there's a lot of people who have been through my same kind of upbringing that aren't the same as me, and more or less they're actually trying to find excuses to get rage out. Like people have certain ways that they want to create more problems for other people in order to feel like they're not alone. For
Hmm.
me, I don't know. I think that I have just a different way of thinking on a lot of things where I try to watch a situation and understand why it's there and what's going on instead of trying to create my own kind of bubble of wanting to feel better than other people and like I don't want to feel better than other people. I want everybody to feel happy, but I feel like my situation might have actually brought me harder into a different kind of spectrum than what I ended up being in. I think it's more or less just the way I'm wired. Maybe I don't think that I necessarily have a better understanding of it because of my experiences or less because I do know people who haven't been through a lot of experiences like me and they still have an excellent level of understanding and they're able to really relate to people too. But that just comes with
Sure.
being able to listen to retain information and understand than wanting to listen to answer somebody or have
Yeah.
a response, right? Like listening to respond is different than just listening.
100%. You're listening to react. Yeah. You're
Mhm.
sort of waiting and you got something. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So you're 26
I am, yeah.
and you like doing things with your hands, it sounds like metal making and auto body stuff.
Yeah, I'm an artist. I taught myself how to draw when I was 10 and then just kind of went up from there. And now I paint and airbrush cars and bikes and machines. Yeah. So I started doing
Wow.
that um a little while ago. How long ago now with that? Actually, it would have been about 6 years ago now I started. I worked at Ritchie Brothers Auction and painted all their heavy equipment. And then I just kind of went from there. And now I'm doing more of the finite auto body work and I have more side clients and stuff like that. But it's been tough without a car. And I always go back to that because it makes me very mad. It's stupid. But the whole thing was stupid and it was all kind of on me, but that's all right. I'll figure that out.
Because you're in Edmonton.
Yeah.
Does this public transport kind of not so
Yeah,
good?
it's crappy. It's crappy. Plus, like when I'm doing side jobs, I have to bring all my own tools and my air compressor. So it's not ideal to be on the bus. It's physically impossible to do that. Yeah. I have a pretty big air
Oh,
compressor. It's about the size of me. It'd be really hard to carry that onto the bus.
for real. Absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You live with your cat. I think I see your kitchen. Looks nice.
Yep.
I see.
Yeah, it's my
Yeah,
kitchen.
looks like it's sunny out today in Edmonton. Do you think
Yeah.
the rest of your 20s? I don't know. This is a weird question. I ask people if they think they're going to try again. I'll ask you that. Yeah, let me just ask you that. Do you think you might try again?
No. No, I don't. But I don't ever guarantee anything. I don't think I will, but
Mm,
never know.
you never know. Yeah. Yeah. Is there anything around, and whether it's just around grief or loss or feeling like you don't want to be here or anything else around all of this? Are there any myths that you want to call bullshit on?
Well, I guess one would be that it's not a choice or a choice of cowardice. Sometimes it's just a situation that really fucking knocks you down. It could happen to anybody, and it can happen in an extremely random way. You don't have to be a certain personality type for it to happen, and you don't have to have a certain life to have it happen. This kind of grief, it kicks you in the ass and it leaves you feeling completely dispelled from yourself. And it takes a lot to bring yourself back, but I wouldn't say to anybody that I wouldn't blame anybody who is still lying in bed at this point, for lack of a better terms. Like if somebody went through what happened, I wouldn't blame them at all to still be laying in bed the way I was in the first month. It's debilitating, that kind of feeling that you feel. It was that kind of loss was completely. Mother Nature can be kind of psycho sometimes.
Mm,
Yeah, I don't
yeah.
know. The cowardice thing is complete bullshit. The selfish thing is bullshit too. It has
Hmm.
nothing to do with that. It has people who are saying that are the ones who are actually being quite selfish themselves by saying that. And to a group of people, nonetheless, 90% of the time, it's like at a party or something that people are talking about it. You know, how many people in that party probably are feeling really down already, and then hear somebody just spew out that kind of nonsense. And I was that person before, and I never thought twice about it. So I know that it's a
Oh,
myth
wow.
because now that I've been through it, I know exactly what it is. And that's not like in recent years. Like I said, it was back in the day when I was in Prince George. But I grew up
Sure.
feeling the same way because I grew up with a bunch of middle-aged white dudes who were man's men and like whatever. So I didn't really get many female figures either. I got mostly dudes I was around all the time, and I was just one of the guys. I was building fences when I was like 7, 8. It was, yeah, it was one of those kind of places that just kind of create a huge amount of misunderstanding in young kids and stigma too.
Won't be going back to
I
live.
might go back to tell them all to get their shit together, but
Well, it's funny. Yeah, I was just thinking about it and you've said it and you repeated like you were that way for understandable reasons. So I always think about, anybody who's listening to this, it's not just any Joe. I mean, if you're listening to this, chances are you're seeking this kind of thing. It's always hard for me to think about, does what anybody says here, can it actually affect change? Because either to me, you kind of get it or you don't. There might be a gray area. And if you don't
yeah,
get it, you're one, not listening to this. And even if you are, you're not 18-year-old Tianna doesn't hear 26-year-old Tianna's wisdom the same way. Like you're just not going to get it. You felt the way you felt. I'm guessing,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And it would be a hard sell. So I'm just sort of thinking aloud, like, just wonder how people can maybe get that message and actually do something. It's tricky.
Power in numbers. More people know,
Mm.
the more people understand, the more people are okay with saying they feel a certain way. Because sure as
Yeah,
shit, they were all gung ho for telling me how much of a loser I was if I scraped my knee and cried. If there was more people telling me it was okay to cry than the people telling me it wasn't, I feel like that would have grown up different.
true. Numbers. And maybe even one person. Like if
Yeah,
one person does it, that, and to me, it almost gives permission for others who really are like they would do it if just one person would do it, and that
they
person
just
does it
don't want
like
to be
that.
alone. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I'm sure that if I'm feeling uncomfortable about a situation, I say it, or if I'm feeling any sort of weird way, everybody always tells me I'm that notorious person that they can feel comfortable feeling or saying anything to, because I'm probably already said it really uncomfortably in a really weird, descriptive way.
Got you.
So no, I think that it's important for people to just understand that even if the way you're feeling isn't actually how everybody else is feeling, you're going to give a lot of people a huge amount of confidence to allow an open line of communication to feel certain ways. And then people are overall just going to be more happy because everybody's understanding a little bit more what
Yeah.
everybody else is going through. And if people would just put down their own stuff for a second and understand that life isn't about only how you're feeling, it's about other people too and how you interact with others. And like, yeah, an overall group of people who are mad are going to impact that one happy person to be mad too. So why can't everybody just try and create an environment where everybody's happy? And then that one person that's feeling really low and sad can maybe feel better because of the energy that they're surrounded by too. Like they know that they can talk and they know that they can feel certain things and they know they can grow and be better too.
Good questions. I wish I had answers. They're good questions. Yep.
Mm.
I am sure you're a very good and he's a lucky kid. I have one other question and it's a sensitive one. Do you want to try to have kids?
I do. Yeah. I want to have a kid. I just know that, whenever I do get pregnant again, it's going to be a very, very long 9 months.
Yeah.
Of me stressing over every single little thing.
Sure.
But yeah, of course. I want to have a kid more than anything.
Well, I'm glad you're still with us and I'm glad we connected and I really appreciate you sharing and cool.
Cool. Well, thank you for having me on the show. I really didn't, you kind of caught me in a moment where I was like, oh shit, I guess I got to share my story now. Cause I was like, oh, he's so cool. I got to tell him to keep up the good work. And you're like, do you want to share? Like, I guess.
Yes. No, yeah. This is nobody gets around those questions that we always go there. And you know what? And I grant, of course, people who are joining me here, you know, it's not anybody, it's a certain particular group, but everybody has shared. Now, granted, some share more than others, but I am so grateful for that people do talk about this stuff. So thank you.
Yeah. Well, no, thank you.
All right. Talk to you soon, Tianna. Hope the day goes really well.
All right. You too. Talk to you later.
Bye. Bye. Ciao. As always, thanks so much for listening and all of your support, and special thanks to Tianna out in Alberta, Canada. Thank you, Tianna. If you are a suicide attempt survivor and you'd like to talk, please reach out. hello@suicidenoted.com or on Facebook or Twitter @suicidenoted. And I know I say this a lot, but if you listen on Apple, please rate and review this podcast. It helps people find it. And there are people that need to find it. That is all for episode number 70. Stay strong. Do the very best you can. I'll talk to you soon.